Well, hello, my friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa Stringworks Workshop. I can't believe it, but I think we're live. It's crazy. It's been a fun morning so far, I can tell you that. I'm trying to sign into my chat here to see if I can get that to work. I'm going to say, is chat working? I tell you, it's just been a crazy morning. It just should be much easier than it is. It's just like it was the hardest thing ever getting this thing going this morning. I don't know why exactly, it just was. And I'm not having a whole lot more fun right now because it's just not cooperating. Oh my goodness. Anybody out there? It looks like we have 44 viewers. And I can see them popping up and it says, yep, it's working. So, okay, nothing worked right. Have one lousy week of COVID and everything just goes in the toilet. I'm a blessed man to have so many people concerned about my health and everything, and I just got countless emails on inquiring about how I was doing and, best wishes and just one thing after another. And thank you. So, yeah, I'm doing real well. Not even COVID could knock me down too far. Oh, my gosh. I'm not making fun of that. Trust me. It wasn't fun, but I think because of the good medical care and advice I got from lots of folks and things, that it went much easier than it might have otherwise. I've lost several friends to COVID, several good friends, and customers and different things, and it's just, man, it's a bad disease. I don't know which variant I got. I would say that I had the Delta. I'm not sure. Omicron, Delta, whichever. I don't even know how to pronounce them, to be honest. I don't study that kind of thing. I just followed the doctor's orders as best I could, and it seemed to have worked out pretty well. I found out I started feeling bad on a Tuesday. What was weird is I already had a doctor's appointment for Thursday. I started feeling bad on Tuesday. So I waited till I went to the doctor, and he insisted that I have a COVID test before he would even see me, let me in his office. And so I had the COVID test, and of course it came back positive. So then he scheduled me to go to the hospital and get the injection the next morning, the transfusion. And that's what I did. And So that Friday then, a week ago Friday, I was out of pocket all day because of getting that transfusion. And then I kind of just didn't feel very good anyway because it was in about the fourth day of COVID there. And, it was all kind of hitting me at once. So that day I didn't do anything. But around 1:30 in the morning, I guess that infusion kicked in and I started feeling better. I started feeling better just about 1:30 that morning. So Saturday, pretty much, I went out and did stuff. And I didn't work all day, but I worked pretty good. And, I'm out in the country, out in the farm, so nobody's around me anyway. I can do whatever I want. And I asked the doctor, I said, do I need to take it easy or can I work? And he goes, if you feel like working, work. And I said, okay. So I did. I pretty much worked the whole time. I was down another half day, I don't know, like maybe the day after that, I don't know, it was probably Monday morning, I think it was, that I felt a little queasy and just kind of laid around for a while. But then in the afternoon, I went out and started working again. During that whole time, I finished my tower, I call it my condo. I finished my tower hunting blind or condo up there and pretty much got that done. So I also cut a whole bunch of trees down and, a whole bunch of firewood and milled a bunch of wood on my sawmill. I mean, I didn't really have a whole lot of downtime, to be perfectly honest with you. Yeah, you'd be surprised. As a matter of fact, it wasn't much different than a normal week other than I didn't really work here in the shop. I still have a real bad cough. I said bad. It's just it's not that bad, actually. It's just a nagging little cough that's driving me crazy. But other than that, I feel pretty good. I did have one day, I think it was Sunday morning. The boys came here from, my grandsons came here from Ohio Saturday night, and I just isolated myself in my man cave. And by the way, I have my own bathroom in there, and I have my own entrance and exit from the house. I don't even have to go through the main house. So I was pretty much isolated. They had the rest of the house, and I didn't want to spoil their fun, not come, because they look forward to coming here from Ohio. They love the farm. So anyway, I let them do that, and I just stayed isolated and stayed away from them. Well, today is actually my 10th day, so this afternoon I'll be able to kind of go see them a little bit now, and maybe take them out and let them shoot their guns and different things like that they wanted to do that they haven't been able to do because I've been sick. But anyway, long story short, it's all pretty good now. I was going to tell you, though, that on that, I think it was Sunday morning when they were here, we had a treasure hunt set up for them. So in other words, really the treasure hunt was to find some presents that we had stashed in that new tower blind. And, some of their Christmas presents. But the tower blind was kind of a present to them, too. It's just a playhouse for them. Well, anyway, make a long story short, I was going to head up there to see their reaction. I wasn't going to get close to them, but I was going to go up there. But somewhere around that time, I had a really bad sinus headache. I mean, really, really bad. Now, this is like day 5 or so into the COVID thing, or 6. And so then, in just a bunch of circumstances, I was trying to get up there with the four-wheeler. Well, it was out of gas. So I went over and got some gas. I started putting it in the four-wheeler, and I thought, boy, this gas looks funny. I'm not sure this is gas. I better smell. Tried to smell it to make sure it was gas. Couldn't smell it. Couldn't smell it at all. It's a weird sensation when you lose your sense of smell. I mean, I couldn't smell it. It was just like it was water. There was no smell at all. And I guess when I had that real bad sinus headache that morning, that's when I lost my sense of smell. Because up to that point, I don't think I had lost it. And I've only lost about 80% of my taste. And this might be my only opportunity in my life to try to eat some of that stuff that I normally can't eat, because I can still taste stuff, but I don't taste it like I used to. Because people get confused all the time. They always, because of my condition, they always say you can't taste things. It's the opposite. I taste everything. I taste everything so strong that's why I don't eat hardly anything, because everything tastes way too strong to me. So I only eat totally bland foods. Well, now would probably be my time to try to taste some other stuff. But, the problem with that is I can't get past knowing what it really tastes like. You guys can't taste it. I can. You don't know what chlorophyll tastes like. It tastes bad. But right now, I can still taste stuff. There's certain flavors and things I can still taste, but just barely. Where most people completely lose their sense of taste, I think because mine is so sensitive, I can still taste some things. But I have lost my sense of smell entirely. Can't smell nothing. Which would be really good if you're going in a real tight truck with a bunch of hunting buddies after they've just been eating chili. So, honestly, I can't smell anything. It's crazy. People have told me that, and I thought, I wonder if that's true. It's true. You can't smell anything. It's crazy. I don't know how the rest of you have done with your COVID experience, but that's mine so far. Actually, I really did. I got very lucky. I didn't feel really that terrible the whole time. I felt reasonably okay. I had like 1.5 days where I felt pretty darn bad, and the rest of the time it was just more like a bad chest cold. It really wasn't horrible. Anyway, that's my story. Thank you so much for the thoughts and prayers and all the kind words. I really do appreciate it. I want to say a special thank you to someone for this, and his name is Robert Lee. Robert Lee heard me talk in one of those videos where people were asking me about my finger planes and stuff, and I said, well, I don't have the 8mm. Well, he sent me one. Thank you, Robert. I really appreciate it. I got to be very careful about what I say. I really try not to use those words. I don't have such and so, because whenever I say that, somebody sends it to me every time. And I'm not begging for stuff. I really am not. I really do think it's funny because you watch those machinist channels and those guys will look into the camera and say, I don't have a left-handed screwdriver. Could you send me one? It's kind of like they asking for you to send one. I don't feel that way, and I don't want anybody to feel like they need to send me anything. But this is really awesome. It's the little 8mm one, and he sent me both blades. He sent me the tooth blade also. So Robert Lee from, let's see, he's in California. Thank you so very, very much. I really will put this to good use. Well, as best I can. Which brings me to the second thing. I've been still trying a bunch of things for my hands. You know, people said I needed to try the boron and I needed to try the CBD oil, the actual oil you consume. I tried that. I've been trying that for several weeks now, and honestly, the hands have just gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. I mean, it's like exponential. It's not like it's getting worse slowly, it's getting worse really fast. I mean, the knots are so much bigger now. I mean, like you can just feel them in my hands. I mean, they're just huge, and they're just everywhere. It's just bad. So it is what it is. Nothing's helping at all. And that was part of the reason I was going back to the doctor, was to talk about this. But he wouldn't even talk to me. He wouldn't even see me in his office. He came out to the car in the parking lot and saw me. And so I have to go back later about the rest of the problems that I'm having. I wake up screaming in the night with my pain in my hands. I wake up screaming with the pain through my spine and my hips and all that. So it ain't good, but I don't see it getting any better either, unfortunately. One more catching up is I haven't done a whole lot more on this. I did, before I got sick, I did get this top pretty much finished. The top is pretty much carved and finished. I wish you could see the detail better on this, but I know the resolution's still not that great on the camera, but it's definitely got a lot more carving in this area than most of them. If you're going to build the world's finest mandolin ever built by a human, you have to do extra. And this is going to have a lot of extras all over this thing. And this, I've got about 80% carved. You can see the carving in that. And it's going to have that same detail on the back in this area here. So anyway, I haven't got much further than that. I really haven't worked in the shop, really hardly any, since our Christmas concert. So it's been a while since I've even done anything in the shop at all. I just kind of took a break, and with the COVID thing, it was just the perfect time to take a break from doing things in here. So I'm kind of anxious to get back in here now. The discussion this morning that I'm going to have, I'm going to warn you ahead of time. I'm going to get on my soapbox big time, and I'm going to sound like I'm mad, and I'm going to be ranting and just going on, because it's a passion I have about problem solving and about how to go about solving problems with common sense and etc. And I'm going to use one of my recent videos as an example, and we're going to go through that. And before we do that, though, I've got a couple of pictures here I just wanted to show you. Now, if you're squeamish, if you don't like to see a dead animal, you might want to turn away, because we're talking about coyotes here. I'll warn you ahead of time. I wouldn't call these gruesome pictures, but obviously they're a dead coyote, and there's two of them. And I just wanted to point out some reasons why I shoot them, and I think you'll see it fairly clearly in these pictures if you do take a look at the pictures. So here we go. I'm turning it on now. The one there on the left that you can see that one's pretty much fully furred out. That is a young male coyote. I would say he was last year's coyote. Just kind of typical, and I shot him. And I shot him with that 308, the one that I repaired that would not shoot a coyote before because it had gone click 3 times on coyotes. It's not clicking anymore, so I'm pretty sure I got it fixed. Now you look at that coyote on the right, and you see there that he has almost no hair on his body. I promise you that's a fresh kill. I mean, like, I shot him, I took his picture less than 5 minutes later. And you see there's no hair on that body. That's what happens when you get a lot of coyotes. At least it does here in Missouri, in this area. They get what they call the mange, and they lose their hair, they lose their fur, and apparently that's really scratchy or itchy to them, and they scratch their own fur off, basically. You notice there's no fur on his tail at all. There's just a stub there sticking up that you can see. He has the same exact look on the other side. I didn't show you the other side just because that was the exit side of the bullet and it looked a little more gross. But anyway, a lot of people said I did this coyote a favor. The friends of mine that hunt and stuff, they said you did him a favor, getting rid of him, because he was miserable. That coyote there was absolutely miserable. They were both male coyotes, by the way. Not that it really matters. And anyway, just think about how cold it gets out there, and how like you're concerned about your pets being out in the cold. Well, just think of that poor dog there. He was living out in the cold without any fur at all. I mean, just a little bit of fur up around his shoulders and his neck. So it's good to knock these things down to keep their numbers in control. As I mentioned to some folks, I mentioned in an earlier video, I'm sure, my son has the farm next door. He counted more, or at least 10 coyotes were after his sheep one day, and they tore the ears off his sheep. And anyway, that'll give you some idea of why I'm out there hunting coyotes. We have way too many of them. And you notice neither one of those coyotes is really skinny. They're both, even the one without the hair, you can tell he's not skin and bones. He's all skin, but he's not just bones. You know what I mean? He's not hungry, which means that they're making a real dent in the small animal population. Now don't get me wrong, they catch a lot of good things too, like rodents and mice and rats and things, and that's good. But they also kill out all the rabbits. They kill out so many of the squirrels, and then they go after the domestic animals too. My grandson's little dog turned up missing after, I'm pretty positive he had an encounter with some coyotes. And the reason we think that is because we heard a scuffle out in the woods. We could hear that little dog yapping, and then he quit yapping. The other dogs came back with their tails tucked between their legs. Pretty sure the coyotes got the little dog. Just pretty positive that's what happened. So I hope you understand there. That's why we hunt them, and that's why I put up that new blind was to, and by the way, the one on the left, I killed that one out of my old blind back there in the back of the property, and this the one without any hair, I killed him out of the new tower blind. So anyway, there you go. Moving on to some more farm scenes I want to show you. This is the new blind. Now, I don't have a brand new picture of it. I need to get an updated picture, but I just thought I'd show you that I did get the sides built, and you can see I'm setting up on that tower now. There's a ladder built there, you can see, and then there's a door there under that window, and I showed a close-up on the right there of building that wall there, and you can see the door that I put in it. And anyway, I do have to put glass in the windows yet. I don't have that yet, and the roof is on it now. I just have a flat metal roof, so that's pretty much done. The boys love that. It's a real playhouse for them. And it's not too far from the house. It's about a quarter of a mile down some trails, and they know how to get there and how to find it, so it's not a problem. Super chat from Tall Red Easel. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it. Hot chocolate time. Yeah, I love hot chocolate. I never did get old enough to drink coffee, but I love hot chocolate. Okay, all right. I hope everybody's okay with all that so far. Yeah, somebody says you can see my knuckles are getting bigger. Yeah, they really are, and especially up in the front joints here, they're really, they just feel knotty. I mean, like just big knots. Yeah, and they hurt like crazy. My thumb here, I've almost lost the use of bending that thumb. I mean, like literally, I can't, you can see how it just doesn't bend at this knuckle. I can bend it here, I can bend it at this knuckle, but that knuckle there just doesn't bend anymore. It's just gone, and it just aches. It doesn't ache all the time. Sometimes it just aches. I think it's the weather. People used to say, you can tell when the weather's changing. Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's when it really, really aches. But anyway, there's certain times you just can't even touch it. I mean, it hurts so bad. So anyway, that's just that's all my sad stories. So now we're about ready to talk about my passion about problem solving. Working on instruments, that's what I do, is I solve problems. You've seen a lot of the comments, and I've seen definitely a lot of the comments where people, they get on me about the neck reset issue, and they say, why don't you do neck resets? How come you don't like to do a neck reset? And this and that. How come you always do all this other stuff rather than do a neck reset? Well, the problem is, I like to fix the problem. I don't want to just do a neck reset because you think it needs a neck reset. Let me back up and tell you two things that happen. People jump to conclusions. Everybody does it. I do it. I think I just did it on my Polaris Ranger. I think I jumped to a stupid conclusion and I paid for it. We all do it. We jump to conclusions to solve a problem. You see that the strings are high, it needs a neck reset. That's your jump to your conclusion. It needs a neck reset. 99 times out of 100, it doesn't need a neck reset. Or I would say 9 times out of 10, it doesn't need a neck reset. It needs the problem fixed. That's what it needs. And so that's the first thing, is people jump to conclusions. The second thing is people guide the guide. Like when you go out on I watch some of those hunting programs, and a professional guide will take people out hunting. Well, the guys that are paying to go hunt are trying to tell the guide what to do. You're guiding the guide. It's the same thing when you have a problem. You take your car into an auto mechanic and you're telling him what to fix. You go in there and you say, well, this alternator's bad. It never keeps the thing charged and my headlights are always dim and da-da-da-da-da. That alternator's bad. Trust me, you go in there and you tell the mechanic what the problem is, you're going to pay for whatever you just told him, and you may still have your problem. It doesn't necessarily, we jump to conclusions and we start guiding the guide. I had a really good doctor. You'd go in and see him and you'd tell him something. He wouldn't even listen to what you thought the problem was. He would listen to your symptoms and he'd listen to what you said, and he'd say, well, let's do some tests on this. I don't think what you're saying is right. It doesn't add up, and he would listen, he knew how to get to the bottom of the problem. And I can give you countless examples of that particular doctor, of how he basically saved my daughter's life and some other significant things, because he knew what to listen for and what to do and how to think about it. He knew how to solve a problem. That's what this discussion's about this morning. Okay, that recent video, and I hate to go back to the 308 and use that as my example, but it is a perfect example of how not to solve a problem and how to solve a problem. When I put that video out, not being a gunsmith, not being a gun expert, I knew that I was going to take a lot of hits. But also, I know how to solve a problem. I really do. I think if there's one strength I have in my life, it's getting in and knowing how to solve a problem. Well, I don't jump to conclusions normally. Everybody does it. I do it occasionally. But normally when I have a really significant intermittent type problem, the thing to do is to consider your facts. Go back to your absolute black and white facts. Start adding up your facts, and then eliminating the things that can't be the problem. For instance, on that gun that had the 4 misfires, and I took it apart on camera. If you didn't see the video, you might want to take a look at that video. I knew that if I sent this out to a gunsmith, When you have an intermittent problem, that means one that you can't make happen. It just happens intermittently and it just happens on its own. Those are the hardest kind of problems to fix. Same way with if you have it on your instrument, it'll be the hardest problem. Like if it's a buzz that happens sometimes and sometimes it doesn't, that's a hard one to figure out. But you have to approach it with an open mind, and you have to approach it with, what do I know for sure? And so in that video, if you'll go back and if you look at the comments in that video on the 308 on my gun, you'll notice in the comments there's at least a dozen comments that said it's the ammo. It's bad ammo. I know it's the bad ammo. You can't rule out bad ammo. Those ammunition companies make mistakes, da-da-da-da-da. Well, I ruled those comments out instantly. I mean, like instantly, because there's enough information in the video to give you clues that it can't be ammo. And when I say can't be, I mean it cannot be the ammo. But they choose to ignore the clues. Okay, what are the clues? Well, first clue that you guys didn't know, because I didn't cover this in the video, is that I have personally shot thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds of ammunition in my life. Not more than some of these other experts. I know that. There's a lot of people that have shot much, much more. But I have, for just an amateur, that hunts and stuff, I have shot a lot of rounds of ammunition in my life. Not one single time can I absolutely put my finger on a bad piece of ammo. Not one time. Out of thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds. I can't go and say, yeah, I remember one time when I had a center fire that didn't go off. I can't do it. I'm sure I probably did have one. So let's just say I had one out of thousands and thousands and thousands. Well, I had 4 with this one gun. Could it be bad ammo? 4 times with one gun? And it's only this one gun that has the problem. Doesn't sound too good. See, the fact is that ammo, for the most part, is pretty reliable. That's the fact. You can believe it's bad if you want to believe it's bad, and you can just be wrong. But it's usually pretty dang reliable. So you got to stop and think about your facts, the things you know for sure. I know for sure ammo's pretty dang reliable. This particular gun, and it's the only gun I have problems with, is misfiring. I've had other guns that have misfired in the past. Also, don't get me wrong. But I couldn't attribute it to ammo either. It was a different kind of problem. All right, so that's the first fact. We know that there's this. So then the second fact is that it's happened. We know it's happened 4 times, and all 4 times, what was the symptom? A very light primer strike. I don't care what ammunition you buying in the whole world, you can't make it strike lightly on the primer. The ammunition cannot cause that. Cannot cause that. That was in the video. You should know that from instantly, and you should know that it can't be the ammo causing that to happen. Now, I know there's still going to be somebody arguing and say, yes, it can cause that. No, it can't cause that, period. Black and white, you're wrong if you think it can. You're just wrong. Okay? So there's the next thing. Again, it's how to solve a problem. You think about your facts. Okay? So, all right, so I moved on and I started going through this gun, and the first, there's only 2 things that can cause this problem now. I've ruled out the ammunition. So the only other 2 things that can cause this problem, there's just 2, is either me, I'm doing something wrong, or it's the gun. All right, so the first thing I did was I tried to rule out me. So I went out and I shot a box of shells and I tried every scenario I could think of to make this thing fail. I couldn't make it fail. So I kind of ruled out me because I couldn't make it fail. So now I'm down to it's got to be the gun. So I decided to tear the gun completely apart. I did. I took the bolt out of it. And sure enough, I found creep and crud down in the bolt where the firing pin goes. And I want to draw you something. Again, not going to be the best artwork in the world. But I wanted to show you, for those of you who had an interest of what the real problem is. Okay, like this would be the bolt on the outside, and of course then there's a chamber inside the bolt like this. So you know that's the outside of the bolt. This is the inside of the bolt. This is the thickness of the wall. On the end of the bolt is pretty much blunt. The shell goes right here. Okay, so and then this firing pin tapers down. The inside of this tapers down also to match this taper. Well, the creeping crud was sitting on that taper right there. So it was pushing the firing pin whenever the pin would go in. Because of that taper, that creeping crud was pushing the firing pin in a certain direction, causing, and you notice one of my symptoms in that video was that the firing pin, you could see wear on that one side. It wasn't really so much wear, it had just worn off the bluing. It didn't really wear the metal, it just shined up the bluing there. Well, that's because it was hitting this, pushing the firing pin over to that one side of the hole there, and that was causing the firing pin to get stuck and not hit the shell all the way. Bottom line is, I think we got the problem fixed. Obviously, I've killed 2 coyotes with it since, and I've shot a couple more rounds through it and have had no problems. My point in talking about all this morning, and it's not to point out the commenters that said it's ammunition. It's not to point that out. It's to point out in your life how you can solve a problem just with plain common sense. Stop and think about the problem. When you take something in for repair, like your car, do not go in and tell the mechanic what you think the problem is. Instead, it's very important you tell the mechanic something, but what you want to tell him is what you have experienced. What I've experienced with my car is when I go out to start the key, it just goes click, 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 click. Or it turns over, but it turns over really slow. Okay? You know, all right, I'm driving it. It's got the headlights just suddenly go dim. I mean, those are the kinds of things you want to tell the guy. Don't go in there and say, well, these things have happened. I'm pretty positive the alternator's bad. Don't tell him what you think's bad. I promise you, you're going to pay for that thing that you just said, and you may still have your problem. Go in and just tell them the symptoms. Anytime you take anything for repair, just tell them the symptoms. My wife is horrible at this. She likes to go in and tell everybody what the problem is, and she ends up paying for the problem, and then she still has the problem. That's why I didn't send this gun out to have it fixed. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there aren't gunsmiths that would have found this. I know there are plenty of gunsmiths that would have found this. Any gunsmith worth his salt would have found this. But that's not the rose of luck. I'm going to tell you about some more rose of luck here in a second. The rose of luck is, I would go to the guy that would instantly go, oh, this guy just doesn't know what he's doing. It's bad ammunition. And he would have put a little oil in there, and he'd have polished this and polished that and cleaned it up, and he'd have handed it back to me and with a $100 invoice and said, here, I fixed it. It's fixed. That's my luck. And I would still have the problem. Because it's intermittent, he wouldn't have been able to create it and make it happen. And therefore, he would think it's fixed, and he would just make that assumption. That's the repair guy I would have gotten. That's just my luck. I know how that works. That's why I decided to fix it myself. But if you can't fix it yourself, know that you need to tell about the symptoms, not the problem. In other words, don't try to diagnose the problem. Just talk about what's happening, and then you'll have far better luck getting your problem fixed. I guarantee you. It's just a black and white. All right, I probably have bored you guys to tears on this discussion. I'm sorry, but it is important to me because, see, that's what I deal with every day, all day long. Now let's apply it to the neck reset thing. I'm not saying you never need a neck reset. What I'm saying is, when you need a neck reset, there usually is a problem with the neck joint. And most of the time when a guitar comes in here, it doesn't have a problem with the neck joint. I'm not saying they never have it, because they do. But most of the time, 9 out of 10 times, they don't have any problem with the neck joint. They just have high action. But almost every single person that brings in a guitar with high action will say, it needs a neck reset. Well, if I was one of those dishonest repair guys, or one of those repair guys that doesn't know their, what from a hole in the ground, I would probably do a neck reset, charge them a big fee, and they would be fat, dumb, and happy, because it will fix the problem. Don't get me wrong. Even no matter what the other problem is, if you do a neck reset, you'll fix the problem, but you're only fixing it temporarily. And then the problem will come back again, and you will have to have another neck reset. I know people that have told me they've had the neck reset on their guitars like 2 and 3, 4 times. And I've seen guitars come in here that's had neck resets done 2 and 3 and 4 times. Why do you think that is? It's because they didn't fix the right problem the first time. Fix the right problem. Go and figure it out. Forget all this extra information that everybody's feeding you, and look at the situation. Is the neck joint loose? No. Well, there's your first clue. It's not loose. It doesn't seem to have any problem with the neck joint. Well, then something else has probably moved then, if the strings are high. Did the neck just curl up on its own? And they can do that. Did it do that? Look down the neck. Is it straight? Still straight. So that's not the problem. Look at the belly bulge on the top. Is there a huge belly bulge? Maybe, maybe not. It just depends on that instrument. If there's a huge belly bulge, there's probably half your problem right there. What about the bridge? Is it tight? Is it loose? Look inside. Are the braces loose? Are they broken? Look at the joint right next to the fretboard on the top of the guitar. Is it broke right here? Because that happens a lot. If an instrument falls like this, it'll cause that to break right here. Or if it gets knocked over, it can cause it to break right here. That's still not a neck reset necessarily. Just because it's broke here doesn't necessarily mean it needs a neck reset. It needs that fixed. It needs this fixed. It needs the insides fixed. You get all that fixed, and you may not need a neck reset at all. But you need to fix the problem, not just fix the symptoms. The symptoms are the strings are high. You understand the difference there between fixing the problem and fixing the symptoms? It's a huge difference. It's a huge difference. The neck joint can be bad from the factory. It can get loose. It can come unglued. It can do all those things. It just doesn't happen very often. At least 8 times out of 10, it's something else. It's not the neck joint. At least 8 times out of 10. That's why I do so few neck resets compared to most guitar shops. Most guitar shops instantly go, yeah, it needs a neck reset. Bingo, you just paid for a neck reset. And you'll still have your problem, because your problem will come back over time. Because once you get that neck reset, it's much stiffer again, and now it's going to even pull even harder on that part that's loose and broke. Guarantee you. I'm not just blowing smoke here. I'm telling you for black and white fact, this is what you need to understand about problem solving. I probably made everybody mad. Honestly, it's the truth. I get so passionate about it because it just happens constantly. I'll give you another real life example. It's the same thing, it's just a little sideways of this, but it's the same thing. My buddy Ron, the one that makes the guitar saddles for me, and I'm not picking on Ron, don't get me wrong. This is not picking on Ron at all, because we all do exactly what Ron was talking about here too. I'm just trying to show you human nature versus what reality really is. Ron needed 4 trees taken down. By the way, this was the day that I actually started coming down with COVID, was on that Tuesday, and I went to help him on that No, I take it back. It was Wednesday. I came down with COVID a little bit on Tuesday, but on Wednesday morning, I went and helped him take down trees. So anyway, that was the day before I went to the doctor. So anyway, on Wednesday morning, he had some trees he needed to take down to run an electric line so the power company could run an electric line. But the problem is these trees leaned heavily over the highway. Okay, everybody, including the highway department, said, yeah, they're going to fall on the highway. There's nothing you can do about it. Well, he was here telling me that, and I said, no, you don't have to drop them on the highway. We can get around that. He goes, oh, they're big trees and they're leaning, and I said, well, I might change my mind when I get there and see it. I mean, yeah, anything could be the case. I agree, but I would say 9 times out of 10, we don't have to fall those trees on the highway. He's going, well, good. I hope you can do that. So I get there and I look at it, and sure enough, they're big trees. They've only got limbs on the highway side because the other side's been, well, it's grown into a big forest for one thing, and the limbs are all growing toward the highway. And so it's really heavily, and it's leaning toward the highway. So I agree with him that it's bad. There's no question about that. I said, I'm 99% sure we can still fall it where it won't hit the highway. So I took down the 3 questionable trees, the ones that we, could go either way, and I took those down just with my saw and knowing how to saw a tree down, because I'm not a lumberjack, but trust me, guys, I've sawed down as many trees as just about anybody on the planet, especially anybody that doesn't do it professionally. So anyway, I knocked down the first 3 or 4 trees, no problem at all. They just fell where they were supposed to. Well, the last big tree that was leaning right out over the highway, I said, okay, let's just get a long rope and we'll tie it up there to as high as we can. And we tied it up maybe 15, 18 feet up in the tree and tied it to the bumper of his 4-wheel drive truck and got his truck we had a 100-foot long rope. So it was a pretty big, heavy rope. So we tied it on, and I said, now, the thing that people do wrong in a situation like this is they pull too hard and they break the rope. I said, all I want you to do is put tension on it and just get good tension to where we can see the tree starting to just move some under tension and just hold that. So then I went over there and I sawed like you would to make it fall the way you want it to fall. And I saw it. And then we could see the tree starting to move. And I said, when you see the tree starting to move from me sawing, take off. And so he took off, fell right where we were supposed to fall, no problem at all. Now, the reason I tell you that is not to pat myself on the back. The reason I tell you that is, again, it's the same kind of thing as problem solving. It's take all your facts into consideration. Don't just go by what it looks like, don't jump to a conclusion. You can easily overcome almost anything that happens in your life or any kind of a problem if you just stop and think about it for a second and apply some logic and some common sense to it. It wasn't that difficult. In fact, that wasn't even nearly the hardest tree I ever took down. It was pretty simple, really. But yet everybody, including the guys that were there that morning, all said it's going to fall on the highway. But I didn't think so, and I was right. It's the same thing as solving any problem. I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. I'm trying to explain to you that there's ways to approach every single problem, and it's a common sense approach. Don't jump to conclusions is what I'm really trying to point out. And do not guide the guide, Okay, I beat that to death. I'm sure I have. We got 237 people on here. Does anybody have any questions for me other than how I'm feeling with COVID? I've got an older cedar top guitar, substantial bridge belly. I reglued the bridge and bridge plate. There is still a belly. Do you have any suggestions to fix it? Well, Gordon, prior to gluing it, I would have. Once you glue it back, you're pretty much stuck. Yeah, Gordon, what you have to do in a situation like that, if I got the bridge loose and if I've got the bridge plate loose, then I clamp flat boards on top and even on the inside if I can, and flatten it between good heavy flat boards, glue all your parts back in there while it's flat. And if you can glue your parts in there while it's flat, then it'll probably hold it and keep it flat. That's where you put in that slightly bigger bridge plate. That's where you put in that slightly bigger bridge. And if you, by the way, if you glue back parts that are already pre-bowed, you're kind of working against yourself. You really need to put in new parts and flat parts and things like that. And you want to try to hold it flat before you glue it. Same way if you had a neck that was really severely bowed, if you took the fretboard off, you want to put a little, bow, straightening in that before you glue the fretboard back on, and that'll help it. If you just do the same thing over, you really didn't help anything. So anyway, Gordon, that's how I would fix it. You can fix that, but after you've already re-glued it, not so easy. Sorry. The guy says, Phil M says, I fixed the problem with my Paul Reed Smith by just chucking it out the upstairs window. Phil, I've fixed a few problems like that myself over the years. I hate to admit it, but I have. Have you heard of a silver bullet syndrome? Yeah, in other words, you think I'm bragging on myself too much, I guess. I'm not really sure. Maybe I'm just misreading that. I don't know. So maybe I don't know what the silver bullet syndrome is. But anyway, I know you can only kill a werewolf with a silver bullet. Did the tornado mess come close to you? Not really too bad here. We missed that pretty much. A few videos ago, someone asked me to do a Hank Williams tune. I try never to miss out on a request. So if some of you have some questions, go ahead and put them in there and I'll get to them in a minute. I'm going to try this. Now, I'm doing this cold turkey. I have no practice. I haven't picked this thing up since the Christmas show. And I promise you that's true. But I'll try to do that Hank Williams tune for you here. If I mess it up, just laugh with me. I got a feeling called the blues, Lordy, since my baby said goodbye. I don't know what I'm gonna do. All I do is sit inside. Oh Lord, the last long day she said goodbye. Oh Lordy, I thought I would die. She do me, she do you, she got the kind of loving. Lord, I love to hear her when she call me sweet daddy. Such a beautiful dream. I hate to think it's all over. Lost my heart it seems. And I've grown so used to you. And now, well, I'm nobody's sugar daddy. Now I'm lonesome, got the lovesick blues. Well, I'm in love with the beautiful gal. Hey, that's what's the matter with me. I'm in love with the beautiful gal, but she don't care about me. I tried and I tried to keep her satisfied, but she just wouldn't stay. And now that she is leaving, this is all I can say. I got a feeling called the blues, Lord, since my baby said goodbye. I don't know what I'm gonna do. All I do is sit inside. Oh Lord, the last long day she said goodbye. Oh Lordy, I thought I would die. She do me, she do you, she got the kind of loving. Lord, I love to hear her when she call me sweet daddy. Such a beautiful dream. I hate to think it's all over. I lost my heart it seems. And I've grown so used to you. And now, well, I'm nobody's sugar daddy. Now I'm lonesome, got the lovesick blues. Oh, I'm lonesome, got the lovesick blues. A little hard to yodel that with this cough thing. But anyway, yeah, that one's a jam buster. Did you notice all the chords that are in that? Yeah, Hank Williams, man, that guy he was just a flippin' genius on music. He really was. That's why he was only in the business 7 years, and people still play his music like crazy. And he was a good one. It's too bad he was eat up with all those personal problems, I guess you'd say. I don't see any more questions being posted here. At least I don't think I do. So maybe we're done. I probably just made everybody mad and just bored you to tears this morning. Could be what the problem is. Jeff says, in problem solving, it helps if you're intelligent. You know, the comment that I hear all the time whenever I talk about common sense is that it's not very common anymore. Well, you know what? It probably never has been very common, to be truthful. You know, people just do normal stuff, you know, and it's just kind of the nature of a person to just jump to a conclusion. And that's where you fall. I would say 8 out of 10 times when you jump to a conclusion, more than likely you're going to be wrong 8 out of 10 times. Are any of your family interested in doing instrument work like you're doing in the shop? I don't think so right now, Letha. I don't think so. The only one that I have any hope for at all might be my little grandson, Trinian. Michael Johnson just did a super chat. Thank you so very much, Michael. I really do appreciate the support. And he even did that after I did that crazy song. Clyde Lewis. Hey, Jerry. Great. You're doing better. I think I'm doing better, really. I'm not kidding. Do you have any tips for adapting a modern banjo head with a rim to an older banjo design for use with flesh hoop? Clyde, I've done it. To be honest, I don't do enough of it to be able to talk intelligently about it. That's the truth of it. I'm sure I could get it done for you if you brought it here. But honestly, I don't, Clyde. I'd have to see it. There's so many different designs and so many different scenarios there that it's really hard to just say one thing. The Michael 2X says, will you be doing any tool sharpening videos, chisels? No, Michael, but I mean, I have done a couple in the past. I'm sure I could do them again. The truth of it is, I really have a very simple technique. And some woodworkers will just tell you they don't like my technique at all. That's okay. It worked perfectly for me. And that is, I literally just go into my grinder and I put a hollow grind on the front edge of the chisel. I come back in here and I lay that hollow ground, because it's hollow ground, it sits on the front edge out here, and I'm exaggerating hollow grinding, but it sits on that front edge and it sits on the back edge. And I just lay it like that and grind it. It grinds a sharp edge in just a matter of seconds. I can sharpen pretty much any chisel or any kind of thing like that in 1/10 the time that I see these other guys doing it on there, and I get it razor sharp. And it holds plenty good edge for me. They say the reason they don't like it is they say the edge is too thin that way and it won't hold the edge. I don't find that as a problem. Plus, I can sharpen it in a matter of a few more seconds again if I need to and hone it again. It stays real sharp for me. That's my method, and it's just that simple. And it only takes me minutes to do it versus hours for some of these guys. So please explain wood grain direction on mandolin sides. Okay, Papa, that's who asked that question. All right, there's several schools of thought on this, on the sides of a mandolin. Some guys prefer slab sawn wood, meaning that it's what they call plain sawn. It's not quarter sawn. Quarter sawn, again, is like pie slices, where you're slicing and the tree rings go through the slice this way. That's quarter sawn. And then they take that and lay that on the side of the mandolin, and you can see those fine lines coming around the side of the mandolin. I do prefer quarter sawn on most things. I think it's stronger. I think it resonates better. That's just me personally. But there's many people, especially on the back of an instrument, especially on the back of a mandolin, that much prefer the plain sawn. And by the way, this one is going to be plain sawn. This is not quarter sawn on the back of this fancy mandolin that I'm building, because it wasn't sawn by an instrument company to quarter saw it. They just sawed it slab sawn. It is book matched, but it's just slab sawn. In other words, I did open it up and book match it like that, but it's not what you call quarter sawn. The quarter sawn is that grain running perpendicular to the edge of the wood, to the side of the wood. So for a mandolin, you can use either one. You can use slab sawn sides. In other words, you can pretty much use whatever piece of wood you pick up for the sides of a mandolin. It won't affect your mandolin all that much. And that's the truth. I mean, some people would probably argue that, but the truth is, it really isn't going to affect it enough that you're going to be able to tell it. It's more about the looks and the strength than it is about anything else on the sides. On the back, it's about looks, strength, and sound on the back. But on the sides, the sound doesn't enter into it very much on a mandolin. The only way that the sides enter into it on the sound of a mandolin is the height or the thickness of the side. In other words, if you get your sides too tall, then you've got too much air in your body, and it'll sound like you're playing in a barrel. The sound won't bounce off and come back out. It'll sound hollow. It'll sound echoey. The sound never comes out. If you get them too thin, well, then it's too little volume. I mean, there's a happy medium. You want those sides about so thick, and then you've got the right amount of volume inside, and it will bounce it back out. Derek Bankston just did a super chat. Thank you very, very much, Derek. I really do appreciate it. But anyway, back to Michael on your tool sharpening. Probably won't be doing much of that. Back to the wood grain direction from Papa. So I hope that answers your question. The next question here is, great tunes. Could you get your daughter-in-law to sing for us again? Your son had her recorded sing, and it sounded awesome. Yeah, she's incredible. She really, her voice, it's. Alison Krauss is the best female singer in the whole free world. I don't care what anybody says. She's the best. Emery's doesn't have anything to be ashamed of when she sings around Alison. I mean, she's that good. She's really good. Bruce Decker, thanks for the heads up about the Sierra Hull. She is awesome on the mandolin. Oh my gosh, yeah, on the mandolin. She to the mandolin is what Alison is to the voice. Alison is to the singing, and Sierra Hull is that to the playing the mandolin. Oh my gosh, can that girl play a mandolin? It's unbelievable. I mean, she does stuff on my very best day with the sun shining and everything all in my favor. I couldn't play 1/10 of what that girl can play. Not 1/10. It's just unbelievable. Just unbelievable. What do you think of the old Gibson A-style mandolins? I've got an old one, probably in the 30s. Well, I'm not an A-style fan, to be honest. I mean, I don't dislike them. They're okay. It depends on which kind of A-style you're talking about, because there's still two kinds of A-style. Well, actually, there's even a little bit more than two. Let me just kind of explain that there's the oval sound hole first of all, and then there's the F-holes. And then there's a body length and a neck length that is associated to both of those two. The short neck length, I definitely am not a fan of those with the A style, and I'm not a big fan of the oval sound hole either. I'm more the F-holes. So if you've got the long fret scale and you got the F-holes on an A style, it's just as good as any F-style mandolin. So from that perspective, I have no problem with them at all. They're great mandolins. But if you got the short neck and or the oval sound hole, and if you have both of those on the same instrument, I'm not that big of a fan of those. They're still highly collectible. They're still very valuable. Don't get me wrong. But me personally, though, for just playing and all that, it's not my thing. Let's see, Rainblaze. Hey Jerry, good to see you back in the... What is the song you use for when you go off camera? The one the girl's singing. I can't remember if it's Opal, Ruby, and Pearl or if it's Red Clay Halo. Let's see here. Let me just play it real quick. Yeah, that's Opal, Ruby, and Pearl by the great Becky Buller. That's another gal you might want to check out if you like bluegrass music and you're a fan of female singers and players. Becky Buller is a heck of a songwriter and a good singer and got a great band, and she's a good fiddle player. Yeah, Becky Buller is very good, and she's the one that wrote that song. That is Emery's mother singing that. Emery's mother used to play bass in my band. Her name was Renee. She got brain cancer and passed away, and Emery sang the most beautiful song I've ever heard in my life, sung at her mother's funeral. And I'm going to play that for you one of these days. Sorry. It just chokes me up thinking about it. But you can imagine Emery's beautiful voice. And she did it perfectly at her mother's funeral. It was unbelievable. When I get the guts, I'm going to play that for you one of these days. I had her, believe it or not, I had her actually re-sing that song on the last hurrah guitar. I can't wait to play it for you. I just have to be strong enough to get through it. I don't know why that affects me so much, but it really did. What's the thickness of my blue chip pick? You know, I don't know. I think it's a 50. That's what it says 50 on it, so I don't know if that's 50 thousandths. Let's just look. Yeah, I really want to get that video out. Yeah, it's 50 thousandths. I really do want to get that video out of Emery singing that beautiful song on the last hurrah guitar. I do think I've got it recorded. I do think I have it on my computer. It was just a spur of the moment thing, and I asked Emery to just do that. Well, it's really kind of a long story. She was going to re-sing that song at another funeral, and believe it or not, it's very tragic. It's really hard to talk about this stuff because it's really tragic. Paul, the man who got that last hurrah guitar, you know, that was Melissa's husband. Again, they're not related to me at all. Melissa worked here for a while in the office. While she worked here, she commissioned that guitar for her husband, Paul. Their son passed away about the time I was finishing the last hurrah guitar. Oh my gosh, it's just complicated. And anyway, they asked Emery to sing that song at their son's funeral. So she was practicing that song anyway, and so I had her practice it and sing it on the last hurrah guitar here in the shop. The last hurrah guitar at that time wasn't even completely finished, but I still want you to hear it, and I will put it out one of these days. And I'm going to try to get it out fairly soon. Boy, I got to get off this subject. What is the brand name and color of leather dyes you use to finish your instruments? Well, Phil, I use the Phoebings leather dyes. Now, they make at least two kinds of leather dyes. And the two main kinds that I'm aware of is they have the oil dye and they have the aniline dye, or the alcohol-based or even water-based dye, if you want to call it that. Because the aniline dye, you can thin it with, well, I wouldn't say you can thin it with water. I would only thin it with alcohol. But anyway, the point is that it is alcohol soluble. So you want to get the alcohol soluble leather dye from Phoebings. F-I-E-B-I-N-G-S, I think. Don't Quote me on that one, but I think that's how you pronounce it. But their leather dyes are very good stuff, and the advantage of that is that you can wipe it down with alcohol and lighten it up and all that. So you can, even if you put it on heavy and it's dark, you can take just plain alcohol and wipe it off, and it's easy to maneuver around with it. Somebody said Sierra Hull had a presidential scholarship to a music college. Yeah, and by the way, Sierra is a really nice girl. I've met her a couple of times, and she wouldn't remember me, by the way. I'm just telling you, I have met her a couple of times. But she's just a sweetheart girl, too. She's really so nice. And that's the way Allison is. Now, I did know Allison really well for a long time, and Allison is a sweetheart, too. She just wouldn't hurt a fly. I mean, she's just beautiful person all the way around. Sarah Hull videos, I learned of Molly Tuttle. She's an awesome musician too. Yeah, Molly Tuttle's very good. There's a bunch of them out there. Golly, there's a bunch of nice ones. But in terms of, if I was picking out the best of the best of the best, in terms of singing, there is no question it's Alison Krauss in my opinion. And in terms of mandolin playing, at least as good as anybody is Sierra Hull. I'm not saying she's better than some of the other guys that play mandolin, but she's every bit as good. There's no question about that. There's nobody that she takes a back seat to, that's for sure. And she's really good on guitar and other things too. We've hit our hour limit here and then some. I hope I didn't just wear you out with my rant there about how to solve a problem. Yeah, I probably did. I probably beat it to death. But doggone it, it's important to me. And it's very important that, you know, you take your things to people that solve their problems that way. You'll be much happier. Rather than, how many times have you taken something to somebody to have it fixed and you end up with the same problem? I mean, that happens all the time with cars. Yeah, and it happens with appliances and everything. So good luck to you on that, but think about it logically and don't jump to conclusions and don't guide the guide. We will see you next Friday. Now that I've talked about that video with Emery singing that beautiful song, I'm going to work on that and try to get that out as soon as I can. I think that's pretty much it. Just one real quick question there. Mike says, what do you think about the new battery-powered chainsaws? I like them. We've got one, a small one, and my wife loves it because she doesn't have to start anything. So she's actually uses it more than I do. And that little tiny chainsaw, you know, that one that I said that someone sent to me as a gift, it was like a little 4-incher. I've used that thing quite a bit. I even used it on building my tower blind, by the way. All right, enough, John. I'll see you next Friday, hopefully 8 o'clock sharp the next time, and you know, maybe I won't have so much trouble with my microphone and all that other stuff. Thank you so much for being so kind to me. We'll see you next week.